The car didn't break down. She planned it. She planned every second of it. The desert road outside Palm Springs, California, the fake sputtering engine, the Oscar-worthy sigh as the SUV rolled to a stop. She planned the performance, the exit, and what she assumed would be the ending. What she didn't plan was that her husband had been 3 steps ahead of her for the last 8 months. And now on a Tuesday afternoon in the sweltering Coachella Valley heat, with their 10-year-old son watching from the side of the road and dust clouds swallowing her taillights, Deacon Whitfield didn't collapse, didn't scream, didn't chase her. He looked down at his son Beau, placed one firm hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "Look at me. We're going to be fine." He wasn't just saying it to calm a scared child. He was saying it because he already knew what was coming. And trust me, by the time this story is over, you will never underestimate a quiet person again.
Before we go any further, have you ever worked yourself to the bone for someone and they still treated you like a burden? This one is for every person who has ever been called useless by someone they loved.
Deacon Whitfield was not the kind of man who walked into a room and made the ceiling shake. He didn't have a flashy car, though he could afford one. He didn't wear a Rolex just to make sure people noticed. He showed up on time. He kept his word. He built things quietly, the way rivers carve canyons, slowly, without applause, until one day the canyon is just there. His wife, Petra Whitfield, had a different operating system entirely. Petra was 36, born in Newport Beach, raised in the kind of household where vacation meant St. Bart's and summer camp meant sailing lessons in Nantucket. She had cheekbones that could cut glass and a smile that had charmed every room she'd ever entered. She ran the West Coast Partnerships division for a boutique import firm called Aurum Edge Fashion. She was brilliant, sharp, and somewhere between their 7th year of marriage and their 8th, she had started to feel it, a low, persistent hum of dissatisfaction she couldn't quite name. Not hatred, not boredom exactly, more like the feeling of standing in a room that used to fit and slowly realizing it doesn't anymore. She kept waiting for Deacon to do something. To surprise her, to push back, to become something bigger. And he just didn't. Not in the ways she needed. So she stopped waiting. And she started planning. This is the part where most people would tell you how the marriage fell apart slowly. Dinner conversations that shrunk. Weekend trips that stopped. But that's not this story. Because Petra Whitfield didn't drift. She detonated. It started on a Wednesday morning at Hargrove Capital Group in downtown San Diego. Deacon was a senior financial strategist. Had been for 11 years, not the loudest voice in the boardroom, but consistently the most accurate. His track record was the kind that earned a nod from the CEO every time he walked past the corner office. Petra didn't see that anymore, or maybe she did, and it just didn't matter. She came to his office supposedly for lunch. What she delivered was more like a press conference. With an audience. Deacon's colleagues. Renata, Topher, Blaine, and a new analyst named Quincy, who'd been there 3 weeks. All found reasons to be within earshot when Petra's voice rose above the office hum. 11 years at this company and still not a partner. What exactly are you doing here? A few keyboards went quiet. We can talk about this at home. I'd rather talk about it here. Maybe your colleagues can explain it to me. You don't build anything. You don't lead anything. You babysit spreadsheets. Renata, 6 years beside Deacon, knowing exactly what he was worth, stared at her monitor with the frozen look of someone watching a car accident from a safe distance. Quincy shifted in his seat and found deep interest in the potted plant near the window. Deacon looked at his wife. Didn't flush, didn't raise his voice. Just looked at her with the calm of a man who had stopped fighting for the attention of someone who'd already made up their mind. "I'll see you at home." He turned back to his desk. Petra made a sound. Half laugh, half scoff, turned toward the exit, then stopped. One last look over her shoulder at the room. Even my own friends ask why I'm still with him. And she left. 4 full seconds of silence. The kind that lives in the aftermath of public humiliation. Renata muttered, "What in the world was that?" Topher opened his desk drawer and took out an Advil, said nothing. Quincy made a mental note to never bring his wife to the Christmas party. Deacon opened his laptop and got back to work. His phone vibrated silently in his jacket pocket. Message from a contact saved only as RH. Majority transfer, final documents ready. Your call. He stood, walked to the glass wall overlooking San Diego Bay, put the phone to his ear. Do it. He hung up, walked back to his desk, picked up his coffee, took a sip. Business as usual. Who was RH? What majority transfer? What was Deacon actually building while his wife was busy calling him nothing? Hold that. First, you need to see the boy. Beau Whitfield was 10 years old and had his father's eyes. Steady, watchful, the kind that saw more than they let on. He was in 4th grade at Pacific Ridge Academy in La Jolla, where the parking lot looks like an auto show and kids know what a hedge fund is before they learn long division. One afternoon, 3 weeks before the desert, a boy named Prescott said something on the playground that Beau didn't forget. My dad says your dad is a nobody, just some number cruncher, doesn't even own anything. Beau stood very still. Your dad's wrong. How would you know? Because my dad doesn't talk about what he owns, he just owns it. You don't hear the roots when a tree is growing. Prescott made a face and walked away. Beau's teacher, Ms. Delacroix, had heard the whole thing. She told Deacon at pickup. He listened, looked at his son climbing into the back seat. Thank you for telling me. He got in the car. Beau was looking out of the window at nothing in particular. I heard what happened today. I know you did. You didn't have to defend me.
I know you did.
I know, I just wanted to. Deacon turned onto Torrey Pines Road and didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Have you ever trusted someone with something you built? Your money, your name, your business? And watched them treat it like it belonged to them? Then you already know what was happening in the Whitfield home office at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. Deacon was asleep. Beau was asleep. The house was silent. And Petra was transferring money. Not household money, not joint account money. The cursor moved with the ease of someone who had done this before. Several times before. The account. Aurum Edge Fashion. West Coast Development Fund. $450,000. Destination K. Lucas. Confirm checkmark. She leaned back, rolled her shoulders, the faintest smile. Not warmth, something colder. The expression of someone who just placed a chess piece exactly where they wanted it. I'm done funding deadweight. This is investing in my future. K. Lucas was Christopher Lucas, 31, white Porsche Taycan, a lifestyle brand that mostly existed on Instagram. Green eyes and a way of making women feel like the only person in a crowded room. He had been Petra's plan for the last 14 months, not just her affair, her exit strategy, her next chapter. Funded by the financial infrastructure Deacon had built, which she, as minority stakeholder in 2 of his consulting arrangements, had partial access to. Partial. That word would matter more than she knew. 2 days later, Deacon was in a conference room at Alderman and Graves law firm in La Jolla. Across from him, 3 executives from a private equity group called Vantage Ridge Holdings. The man at the center was Harlan Oakes. 62, silver-haired, the kind of man who had shaken enough hands to know exactly what kind of grip meant what. Documents on the table, yellow flags on every tab. Deacon signed, quietly, page by page. Welcome aboard, Mr. Whitfield, majority owner.
Welcome
He
aboard,
shook
Mr.
Harlan's
Whitfield,
hand.
majority
His
owner.
expression was the same one he wore ordering black coffee, calm, already thinking about the next thing. The junior attorney taking notes, Orla Fenn, caught herself staring at him a beat too long. Because there was something about a man signing papers transferring $18 million in ownership who still looked like he was doing a grocery run. She wrote in her notes, D. Whitfield. Remarkably composed. That same evening, Beau wandered into the home office looking for his tablet charger. His mother was at the desk. 9 steps in, she heard him. He caught the numbers on the screen. Not the name, just the amount, and the word confirm already clicked.
Hiding that?
Mom,
Go to bed.
why are you hiding that? Petra snapped the laptop shut. Children don't ask questions they can't afford to understand. Go to bed. Bo stood there. Something moved across his face. Not fear, not confusion, understanding, the kind that arrives too early and leaves a mark that doesn't fade. He found his charger, walked out. That night he knocked on his father's door. Dad, Mom is doing something with money. Deacon put his book down. What did you see? A lot of it, and she shut the laptop the second she saw me. Come sit down. They sat on the edge of the bed, father and son. In the quiet dark. I need you to trust me right now, not because everything is fine, because I need you to know I've already handled it. Already? Already? Bo looked at his father for a long moment, nodded once, the way men nod when words feel insufficient, and went back to bed. Saturday morning came in hot. Petra announced a day trip. Anza Borrego Desert State Park, wildflowers blooming. Good for Bo, she said. Family time. Deacon watched her make the plan over breakfast with the attention of a man reading a map he already knows by heart. They left at 8. Eastern suburbs, El Cajon, Alpine, then the long stretching nothingness California becomes once you leave the coast behind. Bo sat in the back with his headphones on. Saguaro shadows stretched long across the dirt. The sky, that particular shade of blue that only exists in the California desert, so bright it almost looks wrong. Petra drove, talking more than usual, laughing slightly too easily, the kind of performance that would have fooled someone who wasn't paying attention. Deacon paid attention. 40 minutes outside Palm Springs, the SUV began to slow. Slowed again. Stuttered. Rolled to a stop on an empty stretch of Highway 74, heat shimmer in both directions. Of course, just great. She hit the steering wheel, lightly, theatrically. Everyone out. They stood at the hood. Petra lifted it, stared at the engine with the expression of someone who absolutely did not care about what they were looking at. Deacon had already checked his phone. Full signal. He'd already noted the water bottles in his bag. He'd already known this moment was coming. Bo moved close and spoke just below the desert wind. Dad, something's wrong. Stay close. Petra stepped back from the hood, looked at them both, then walked. With the precision of someone executing a rehearsed move to the driver's side door. Got in. Engine turned once. Failed. She tried again. It roared to life. Bo's mouth fell open. She dropped it into drive. Tires kicked up a wall of desert dust. In the half-second before she accelerated, she looked at Deacon through the windshield. Really looked at him. I spent 12 years making myself smaller for you. I'm done. The SUV surged forward. The dust hit them both in the face, and Petra Whitfield drove away from her husband and her son on a desert highway in the California heat. Bo was crying, not loud. The quiet kind where tears move fast and sound catches in the throat. Deacon stood in the dust, watched the car disappear, didn't move for 10 seconds. Then he crouched to his son's eye level. Look at me. Bo looked. We are going to be fine, not eventually, right now. How? He held up his phone, a message sent 4 minutes ago to RH. Initiate. The reply already back, done. And below that from Orla Fenn at Alderman and Graves. All filings processed, you're clear. Because I knew. He stood up, put his phone away. Now, let's walk to Shade and call a car. And they walked. How many times have you stayed silent while someone dismantled you? Not because you had nothing to say, but because you were already building the answer. That is exactly what Deacon Whitfield had been doing for 8 months. And Petra was about to find out what patience looks like when it finally walks through the door. Petra was already an hour ahead on the I-10, windows down, pushing 90. It's done. We're free. Christopher's voice came back warm and easy.
We're free.
Tell me everything.
I left them in the desert.
I left them in the desert.
Is it ready?
The accounts are moved. The apartment in Los Feliz. Is it ready? Waiting for you? She smiled, pressed harder. What she didn't know was that at that exact moment, 2 things were happening simultaneously in San Diego. At Hargrove Capital, Renata was convening an emergency executive briefing, authorized by the new majority owner, Deacon Whitfield. And at Alderman and Graves, a courier was hand-delivering a certified packet to the California Financial Regulatory Bureau. 14 months of unauthorized transfers from the Orem Edge Fashion West Coast Development account. $1.2 million. Beneficiary K. Lucas. Primary account holder flagged Petra Whitfield. Assembled by forensic accountant Theodore Marsh. Hired quietly 8 months ago, not a single billable hour visible to Petra. Petra pulled into the Rancho Santa Fe driveway at 2:47. She moved fast through the house. Bedroom, closet, the panel behind the hanging suits. The safe was open. Empty. Not broken in. Opened cleanly and emptied with care. She went to the home office, the desk drawer with her secondary files. Cleared. She called her bank, flagged, suspended pending legal review. Called her personal account, under investigation. Called Christopher. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. She texted, "Call me now." 2 grey ticks, unread, and as Petra Whitfield stood in the silent heart of her perfect house, with no files, no cash, no answer, she began to understand. This wasn't falling apart. This had been taken apart. Sunday she called Whitmore Jenks, her financial advisor. He answered on the 4th ring instead of the 2nd, which told her everything before he said a word. There's been a regulatory flag. The Bureau has initiated a review. Unauthorized transfers. 14 months of them. A review of what? Petra, I have to ask you directly. Did you authorize these transfers? She didn't answer. She ended the call. Stood in her kitchen in one of the wealthiest zip codes in California, and for the first time in a very long time. Had no next move. They arrived home at 5:43 via rideshare. Deacon had booked a hotel in Palm Springs the night before, ordered room service, let Bo watch whatever he wanted. Petra was in the living room when they walked in. She stood fast, eyes moving. First to Bo, then to Deacon. "Bo, baby." Bo walked straight past her, went to his room, closed the door quietly. Not a slam. Something worse than a slam, a deliberate close, like a verdict. Petra stood there, hand still slightly extended toward the space where her son had been. "You should call your attorney tonight." That was all he said. He went upstairs. Petra stood in her beautiful living room and listened to the house be silent around her. Tuesday morning, Hargrove Capital Group. Petra had spent Monday with her attorney, Celestine Waverly. Financial law, La Jolla office, the kind that cost more per hour than most people made in a day. Celestine had been direct. The review was serious, the transfers were documented, and without Christopher Lucas, who had gone completely dark. The paper trail pointed one direction. But Petra had one card, the consulting agreements, copies in a cloud account Deacon didn't know about. She believed they gave her leverage, that if she walked into Hargrove publicly and made her position known, she could complicate enough to negotiate. Navy blazer, best heels, the posture of a woman who intends to be taken seriously. 9:17 a.m., she walked in. The reception desk, young man named Everett. 8 months in the job, excellent instincts. "I need to see the executive board, Petra Whitfield." "Mrs. Whitfield, I'll need to—" "You don't need to check with anyone. I'm a stakeholder in 2 consulting arrangements under this firm." Everett picked up the phone, spoke quietly, nodded. "Has your attorney contacted you this morning?" "What?" "I need to ask you to speak with our general counsel." A door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, steel grey blazer, reading glasses pushed up on her head, folder in hand. "Nadia Osei, general counsel. Why don't we step in?" It wasn't a question. T. Small room, no windows. "As of Monday closed, your minority stakeholder positions have been dissolved. Transfer of majority ownership to Mr. Whitfield was filed and processed last Wednesday. You have no legal standing in this building. Those agreements required my consent. They required the minority stakeholders' consent, which was you, until Wednesday. when your signed authorization was submitted as part of the transfer documentation. I never signed anything for a transfer. You signed at the initial consulting formation 18 months ago. Clause 14b permitted majority transfer under specific performance conditions, which were met and verified. Your attorney should have caught it. Silence. Petra stared at the folder. Her mind went back 18 months. The stack of documents, a bottle of white wine, Deacon sliding pages across saying sign here, here, and here. She had, because she trusted the words attorney reviewed, because the wine was good, because she had never once imagined needing to read the fine print on something involving her own husband. Nadia closed the folder. He's making an announcement to staff in 20 minutes. I'd suggest you not be here for it. I want to see him. That's your right, but he knows you're here. The boardroom doors opened at the end of the hall. Renata had sent a company-wide message. All staff, main floor, 9:30. Something to celebrate. 41 people. Topher, Quincy, Renata with her arms folded, the expression of a woman who had waited 6 years for this morning. Harlan Oakes near the window. And then Deacon walked through. Charcoal suit, no tie. The relaxed, exact presentation of a man who doesn't need to perform authority because he has it. The room shifted toward him. Petra had moved into the hallway. She saw him before he saw her. In the split second before he looked up, she understood, with cold and total clarity, what she was looking at. Not her husband, the number cruncher. Not the man she'd called a liability 11 days ago in this very building. The majority owner of the company. Effective immediately, Hargrove Capital's Strategic Consulting Division transitions to full majority ownership under Mr. Deacon Whitfield. In partnership with Vantage Ridge Holdings, 11 years of building. And now he holds the keys, real applause, the kind that comes from people who mean it. Quincy, 3 weeks in, already understanding what he was witnessing, clapped harder than anyone. Topher exhaled slow and nodded to himself. Then Petra walked forward. One last move, the public confrontation. It had worked before in this building. Excuse me. 2 security staff stepped into her path, not rough, just present. This is my husband's company. You can't just... The room went quiet. Nadia appeared at her side. You're the former minority stakeholder's spouse. This is private property. Petra looked past her, past security, directly at Deacon. He was looking back. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, not with the wounded expression of a man who had been collecting this moment for revenge. He was looking at her the way you look at a chapter of your life that is finished, like it was already past tense. 3 seconds, then he turned back to the room, continued the conversation he'd been having before she arrived. Just like that. And that quiet dismissal, that absolute absence of drama, was the most devastating thing he could have done. Not one person in that room was looking at her. Security walked her to the elevator, politely, firmly. The doors closed. She was gone. Petra had trusted Christopher Lucas with 14 months of planning and $1.2 million. Here's what he did with it. Monday morning, an auditor named Aldous Fern called him. Your account received wire transfers totaling $1.2 million from a regulated business account over 14 months. You're named as beneficiary in an active investigation. 3 seconds of silence. I didn't know where it came from. The documentation suggests otherwise, sir. He ended the call, then called Petra. You said you controlled everything. You said it was your money, your account, your authority. You told me your husband was nothing. His voice had lost every trace of the warmth she'd fallen for. Underneath it was ugly. Panicked, cornered, the sound of a man whose performance had run out of stage. The auditors have my name because of you, my record, my business. Don't call me, don't come here. We're done. Click. She called back. 1 ring, voicemail. Blocked. The man she had left her family for had evaporated, completely, as though he had never existed. Because men like Christopher Lucas are not built for weight. They are built for good weather. And when the storm came, he ran, 3 days after the boardroom, Petra called Beau from her suite at the Grand Colonial Hotel. The phone rang 4 times. Deacon had given Beau the choice. "It's your call." He answered on the 4th ring. "Hi, Mom. Baby, how are you? I've been trying to—" "I'm okay." Petra's voice softened into the register she used when she needed something. "Everything I did because I was unhappy. Not because of you, never because of you. I know you love me. Come stay with me, just a few days. There's a pool, it's nice." Beau was quiet for a moment, the kind of quiet that has shape to it. "Mom, you left us on the side of a road." Not accusation, not anger, just a fact, with the specific weight that only truth has. "I know, and I'm going to spend a long time making that right. I believe you. But I want to stay with Dad." Petra's breath caught. "I'm not saying I don't love you. I just want to stay with Dad." A long pause. "Okay." Her voice had gone very small. "I'll see you soon, Mum, okay?" He hung up, set the phone on his desk. Opened his homework, 10 years old. 10 years old, and he already understood that love and loyalty are not the same thing. That you can love someone and still recognize what they did. Deacon was in the doorway when Beau looked up, hadn't listened, just been nearby, the way fathers are when they can't quite leave. "She wanted me to come stay." "I know. I told her I want to stay here." "You sure?" "Yeah." Deacon nodded, turned back down the hall. "Dad." "Yeah." "You never told me to say that." "No." "How did you know I would?" Deacon leaned against the doorframe, looked at his son. "I didn't. I just knew whatever you decided would be right. Because you're you." Beau turned back to his homework. Deacon walked back down the hallway of their home. Quieter now, different, but still theirs. And went to make dinner. Petra requested one meeting. Through Celestine, neutral ground. She wasn't sure he'd come. He came. 4 minutes early. He sat with a glass of water and his phone face down. When she walked in, he stood briefly, then sat back down. No theatre. "Why didn't you just tell me what you were doing?" It wasn't strategy, it just came out. Deacon looked at her. For the first time in months, she saw something move across his face that wasn't distance, something older, from before all of this. "I tried to." She opened her mouth. "Not about the business, about us. 2 years I tried to tell you something was wrong. You called me a liability in front of my colleagues instead." Silence. "I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it because you made it clear there was no other way." Celestine started to speak. He held up one hand. She stopped. "You didn't lose me in the desert, Petra." He paused. "You lost me the moment you decided I was nothing." Another pause, longer. "I gave you time. You used it to destroy yourself." 3 sentences, no performance. The room was still. Petra looked down at the table. She didn't have an answer, not because he'd won an argument, because he was right. And they both knew it. The regulatory review concluded 4 months later. Christopher cooperated fully with investigators in exchange for reduced penalties. Confirming every detail of the transfers, he was fined. The Shopify store disappeared. The Porsche was repossessed. He moved to Phoenix. Petra received a formal censure and a significant financial penalty. Her name came off the Orem Edge partnership. Her professional reputation in Newport Beach and La Jolla did not recover. She relocated to Sacramento. Started over in a smaller life. No catastrophe, no villain's ending. Just consequence. The ordinary grinding kind that follows choices made badly. Deacon sold the Rancho Santa Fe house. Too many rooms. The maintenance alone was a part-time job. He bought a 4-bedroom in Point Loma, a San Diego peninsula above the Pacific where mornings smell like salt and evenings go orange over the water. The houses there have front porches, real ones with room to sit. Beau's new school was smaller. The parking lot looked nothing like an auto show. His 4th-grade teacher, Mr. Okafor, had been teaching 22 years and knew that the kids who watched everything quietly were always the ones worth watching. First Friday of October. 3 months after everything. Deacon sat on the front porch as the sun went down over the Pacific. Bo came out and sat beside him. They were quiet for a while. The good kind, the kind that doesn't need filling. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" The light was doing that thing it does over the water. Wide and warm and unhurried, like it had nowhere else to be. "We already are." Bo nodded once, leaned back in his chair, and they sat there as the sun went into the water. This father and this son. In the quiet of a life that had been broken down and built back. Not louder, not flashier. Better. Truer. I stood in the dust and watched her drive away. I didn't chase her, didn't call out, didn't crumble in front of my son. Because here's the thing about being underestimated for long enough. It stops being a wound and starts being a strategy. While she was deciding I was nothing, I was building. While she was performing certainty, I was preparing. While she left us standing in that heat, I already knew what was waiting on the other side of the dust. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need the room to go quiet when it enters. It doesn't need to humiliate the person who got it wrong. It just keeps building, quietly, steadily, until the day the gap between what they thought you were and what you actually are closes, and they feel it, standing exactly where they left you. If this story hit you, share it with one person today. Someone fighting quietly, someone building in silence, someone who's been called useless by someone they loved. They need to hear this. And drop a comment. What was the line that hit you hardest? The people who betray you are often running from their own emptiness. Petra didn't just want money or a new man. She wanted to feel significant again. That is a human feeling. But she chose to fill it by taking from someone who trusted her. When you find yourself craving something that requires you to diminish someone else, that is the moment to stop and look inward, not outward.